My name is Wren Calloway, and I am 29 years old. I have been a licensed electrician for 6 years. Not because I fell into it, not because I couldn't get into college, not because I had no other options. I chose it because I was good at it, because it paid well, and because there is something deeply satisfying about walking into a building that you wired and knowing the lights come on because of you. My hands have burn marks on the knuckles from a conduit job I did 2 winters ago. My work boots weigh 4 pounds each. I keep a voltage tester in my jacket pocket the way other women keep lip balm, and I have never, not once in 6 years, been embarrassed by any of it, until my sister made me feel like I should be. It was a Tuesday evening in late September when she called. I was sitting in my truck outside a job site in Dayton, eating a gas station sandwich because I'd worked through lunch. The sun was going down behind the industrial park, and everything had that flat orange light that makes even parking lots look almost pretty. I picked up without looking at the screen because I assumed it was my foreman calling about the permit inspection the next morning. It was my sister Vanessa, 24 years old, 2 years into a marketing job at a mid-sized firm downtown, recently engaged to a man named Cooper, who I had met exactly 3 times, and who always seemed vaguely startled by my existence. "Hey," she said, "do you have a minute?" I told her I had several. I had a whole slice sandwich left. She laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that covers something else. Then she said, "I need to talk to you about the engagement party." I already knew I was invited. My mother had told me the date 3 weeks earlier, and I'd requested the day off from my crew lead. I had even bought a dress, which for me is an event in itself. Navy blue, knee-length, the kind of thing that makes my steel-toed boots look especially incongruous when I try it on in the fitting room. "The thing is," Vanessa said, and her voice dropped half a register, "Cooper's family is flying in. His parents, his aunt and uncle, his grandfather. She paused, searching for the right word and not quite finding it. Formal. His father is a partner at a law firm. His mother chairs 2 nonprofit boards. They have a certain idea of the kind of people Cooper comes from." I said that sounded fine. She said, "Right, it's just, I don't want things to feel awkward, for anyone." I put my sandwich down on the passenger seat. "Vanessa, what are you actually saying to me?" Another pause. Longer this time. The kind that means the next sentence has been practiced. "Cooper thinks it might be better if you didn't come. Just for the party. Not the wedding, obviously. Just this one event. He said he mentioned to his dad that you work construction, and his dad made a comment, and now Cooper is worried it's going to be a whole thing. He doesn't want his parents to have the wrong impression of our family right off the bat." I sat with that for a moment. The wrong impression. I repeated it back to her, not as a question. She said she knew it sounded bad. She said she felt terrible about it. She said she'd told Cooper it was a weird ask, but he was stressed about making a good first impression on his own parents, and she was trying to be supportive of her fiancé, and could I please just understand? "I understand," I said. I meant it as a complete sentence, not a concession, not forgiveness. Just, I understand what is happening here, and I am recording it clearly. I told her I hoped the party went well. I hung up and finished my sandwich. Then I sat in that parking lot for another 20 minutes watching the orange light go gray. My best friend Danny called me later that night. I didn't answer. I didn't want to talk about it out loud yet, because talking about it out loud would make it real in a way I wasn't ready for. Instead, I sat on my couch, and I thought very carefully about what my sister had just asked me to do, and what it said about how she saw me. Not my job exactly. Me. The version of me that existed in her mind when she needed to explain her family to people she wanted to impress. There was something else, something I hadn't told my family yet, because I was waiting for the right moment. 6 weeks earlier, I had passed my master electrician exam on the first attempt. I had also, just days before Vanessa's call, been offered a project supervisor position on a large-scale commercial retrofit project. A historic downtown building being converted into mixed-use loft units, the kind of job that gets written up in regional business journals. It was the biggest role I'd been offered in my career. It came with a salary bump that would have made Cooper's law firm father raise an eyebrow, not out of pity but out of recognition. I hadn't announced it yet, because I wanted to sit with it a little. Let it become real before I handed it to other people to react to. Now I decided I'd keep sitting with it. I was curious what the party would teach everyone without me there to interfere. The party was on a Saturday in October. I know what happened because my mother called me the following Monday, and then my father called me that same evening, and then Vanessa called me 3 times before I picked up on the 4th. By then I had a fairly complete picture assembled from 3 separate witnesses who had all experienced the same dinner and were each processing it in very different ways. What happened was this. Cooper's family arrived. His father, a man named Richard, who was exactly as formal as advertised. His mother, tall and quiet, who smiled with great precision. His grandfather, a retired civil engineer who had built bridges in Ohio in the 1970s, and who still talked about concrete with the enthusiasm of someone describing a first love. And his aunt, who arrived holding a glass of white wine she'd clearly started before the party began, and who asked questions like a woman who considered social interrogation a competitive sport. The dinner was going fine, by all accounts, until the aunt asked about Vanessa's family. Where her parents worked, what her sister did. Cooper, according to my mother, answered for Vanessa. He said I was between things. He said it casually, the way you'd mention a minor footnote. The grandfather looked up from his bread plate and asked between what things exactly. Cooper said something vague about me being in the trades. The grandfather put his bread down. He asked what kind of trades. Cooper said electrical work, in a tone that was meant to close the subject. The grandfather did not let the subject close. He asked whether I was licensed. He asked what kind of jobs I worked. He asked if I'd done any commercial work or if I was mostly residential. He asked these questions with the focused attention of someone who knew exactly what the answers meant. Cooper said he honestly didn't know much about the specifics. And that is when the grandfather turned to Vanessa and said that she ought to be proud of a sister who did skilled electrical work, because in 40 years of civil engineering, he had never once been on a project that didn't live or die by the quality of the electricians. And that a licensed electrician in commercial construction made excellent money, and the work was not easy to do well. The table, by my mother's description, got very quiet. Richard, the law firm father, said something polite and pivoting. His wife smiled her precise smile. The aunt poured herself more wine. Cooper, from what Vanessa told me, spent the rest of the dinner looking like a man who had miscalculated something he couldn't recalculate in public. The grandfather asked Vanessa to have me reach out to him. He said he had a contact at a project management firm that was always looking for people who came up through the trades and had supervisory ambitions. He said people like that were not easy to find. Vanessa said she would pass it along. She did not say. We asked her not to come because we thought she'd embarrass us. She did not say anything for the rest of the dinner that wasn't carefully chosen. My mother called me on Monday. She started with the weather and the food, and how Cooper's grandfather was a very interesting man, and did I know anything about bridge construction, because apparently it was fascinating. Then she circled around to what actually happened with the halting, over-explaining energy of someone who knows they are on the wrong side of a story. My father called that evening and was more direct. He said, "Your mother told me what Vanessa asked you to do before the party. I want you to know I didn't know about it until afterward. I'm not sure what to say except that it wasn't right, and I'm sorry I wasn't there to say so at the time." That call mattered to me more than he probably knew. Vanessa called 3 times on Tuesday. The first 2 I let ring. The third time I picked up because I didn't want to be the person who makes someone sit in uncertainty longer than necessary, even when that person has earned some uncertainty. She started talking immediately, the words already lined up and waiting. She said she was sorry. She said it had been wrong to ask what she'd asked, and she knew that. She said she'd been so caught up in wanting things to go smoothly with Cooper's family that she hadn't stopped to think about what she was actually doing to me. She said Cooper's grandfather had spent 20 minutes after dinner asking about me, and now Cooper felt terrible and she felt worse. I let her finish. Then I said, "I passed my master electrician exam 6 weeks ago." Silence, and I was offered the project supervisor position on the Alderton building retrofit last week. It's a $9 million project. Historic conversion, mixed use. The kind of job that gets covered in the Dayton Business Journal. More silence. "I'm telling you now," I said, because I was going to tell everyone at the party. That was the plan. But the party happened without me, so I'm telling you now instead. Vanessa said my name in a way that had no script behind it. Just my name, raw, with no performance attached to it. I told her I accepted her apology. Not because everything was resolved, but because I didn't want to carry it. The particular kind of weight that comes from being made to feel like a liability by someone who is supposed to be on your side. It's heavier than people think, and I do enough heavy lifting at work. What I did not say, but what she understood, was this. The thing she had tried to hide had become the most interesting topic at her engagement party. The absence she had arranged to make things go smoothly had become the thing everyone noticed. 2 weeks later, Vanessa asked if I'd be willing to meet Cooper for dinner. Not a big thing. Just the 3 of us. She said he wanted to apologize in person, I said I'd go. He apologized. It was not a perfect apology. There was some explanation in it that felt like it was still trying to reframe what had happened rather than just sit with it. But it was real enough that I accepted it. And at some point in the evening, he mentioned that his grandfather had asked about me twice since the party. And something in his face when he said it had shifted from when he'd first mentioned my name all those weeks ago, in a tone like I was a footnote. I'm not going to pretend that dinner fixed everything. It didn't. There are some things you can apologize for and some things you just have to live alongside, and figuring out which is which takes time. Vanessa and I are figuring it out. She calls more than she used to. She asks about my projects, really asks, not in the polite way people ask about things they're not actually interested in, but in the way you ask when you're trying to make up lost ground. Cooper's grandfather reached out to me directly through Vanessa's contact information a month after the party. His name was Harold, and he was 81 years old and had the email style of someone who learned to write letters before email existed, formal and careful and courteous. He said he'd heard about the Alderton project, and that he had a former colleague who sat on the historical preservation board for that district. He said he thought a connection might be useful and asked if I'd like an introduction. I said I would. That introduction led to a conversations that led to a meeting that led to my name being added to a short list for a consulting role on a federally funded infrastructure project slated for the following year. I haven't gotten the position yet. I don't know if I will. But I'm on the list, and 6 months ago I wasn't. My sister tried to keep me away from a table because she was afraid of what people might think. What actually happened is that the most accomplished person at that table spent 20 minutes talking about how much he respected people who do what I do, and then spent the next month helping me get somewhere I didn't even know I was trying to go. I still have the burn marks on my knuckles. I still keep a voltage tester in my jacket pocket. My work boots still weigh 4 pounds each, and I still don't think twice about any of it. The only thing that's changed is that I stopped giving my sister's fear of other people's opinions any space in how I think about myself. That particular circuit I have completely disconnected. And the lights are still on.